Okay, imagine you're sitting there sipping your morning coffee, scrolling through your phone, and bam, a headline hits you like a freight train. China and Europe just teamed up in a way that has got the U.S. shaking in its boots. We were talking a trade alliance that is flipping the script on everything you thought you knew about global power. So how did this even happen? Let's take it back. Way back. After World War II, the world was a mess, right? Economies in ruins, people desperate. And out of that chaos came the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944. It set up the U.S. dollar as the kingpin of global trade. Picture it. Bustling ports in New York, ships loaded with goods from every corner of the planet, America calling the shots. Fast forward to the 1970s and China's just starting to wake up. Deng Xiaoping kicks off reforms. Factories start popping up in places like Shenzhen. By the 2000s, they're not just making cheap toys anymore. They're pumping out steel, electronics, cars, and the U.S. is eating it up. Trade between the two hits $559 billion by 2017. But then the cracks show up, 2018 rolls around, and Trump's like, nope, no more. He slaps 25% tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum. China fires back with $50 billion in tariffs on U.S. goods, soybeans, cars, you name it. By 2023, that trades down to $360 billion, a $200 billion drop. Insane, right? Now let's shift the camera to Europe. They've been quietly building their own game. Germany, ANS, Volkswagen, and BMW have been raking in billions selling cars to China. $103 billion in exports in 2024 alone. That's up 8% from the year before. And Europe's got this green agenda. They want zero emissions by 2050, so they need electric vehicles. Lots of them. Enter China, stage left. They've been pouring cash into EVs like it's water, $230 billion in subsidies since 2009, and it's paying off. BYD, this Chinese company you might not even know, overtakes Tesla in 2024 with 3.2 million EV sales worldwide. Tesla's at 2.8 million, sweating a little. Now picture the scene. Massive cargo ships pulling into Hamburg, unloading these sleek electric sedans, while U.S. ports like Long Beach are eerily quiet. Tariffs stacking up like abandoned crates. Europe's not dumb. They see China's got the goods they need. Lithium for batteries, rare earths for tech, and they're cheaper than anything the U.S. can offer. Back in 2013, China launches the Belt and Road Initiative, this monster project linking 155 countries with $1.3 trillion in investments by 2025. Roads, railways, ports, all tying Asia to Europe tighter than ever. The U.S. watches from the sidelines, thinking tariffs will keep them in the game. But here's the thing. China's not playing by the old rules anymore. They're building highways through Kazakhstan while America's arguing over infrastructure bills. Europe's jumping on board. Spain's ports are buzzing with Chinese EVs. Hungary's got BYD factories humming, and Germany's Siemens is signing $2 billion deals for Chinese battery tech. This isn't just a trade deal, it's a slow-motion power shift. So how did we miss this? Think about it. While the U.S. was busy flexing muscle, China and Europe were shaking hands behind the curtain, building something unstoppable. And it's all coming to a head right now. April 2025. You're watching history unfold. So what's the U.S. going to do about it? Stick around, because this is just the beginning. All right, so we're diving into the meat of this thing. April 8th, 2025, and the world's spinning faster than ever. China and Europe just dropped a bombshell deal that got everyone's jaw on the floor. They're locking arms on electric vehicles, and it's a game changer. China promising Europe 50% of its EV exports, that 2 million cars hitting EU streets by 2026, while the U.S. is over here jacking up tariffs to 45% on anything Chinese. Let's break this down because it's wild. China didn't just stumble into this EV throne. They built it, brick by brick. Since 2009, they've dumped $230 billion into subsidies. That's not pocket change. It's a war chest. And it's why their batteries are 60% cheaper than anything the West can churn out. Their company, BYD, is cranking out models like the Dolphin and the Seal. Sleek, affordable, and electric. and Europe's eating it up. Last year, China shipped 1.4 million EVs to the EU, a 35% jump from 2023, while the US got a measly 150,000. Now visualize this. Factories in Hungary buzzing with BYD's latest lines, workers in high-vis vests piecing together cars that'll roll out to Berlin and Paris, Spain's ports unloading Sherry EVs by the thousands. Meanwhile, Detroit's a ghost town. Ford, GM, Chrysler, the big three, their sales dropped 12% in 2024. That's 1.2 million fewer cars sold. Why? Because U.S. tariffs make Chinese EVs cost $15,000 more here than in Europe. Who's going to pay that? Not you, not me. Now let us talk numbers because they don't lie. Global EV sales hit $560 billion last year, and China's got a 55% slice of that pie. Europe's desperate to keep up with its green goals. 25% of all cars sold there were electric in 2024, but they can't make them fast enough. Germany's Volkswagen is bleeding. Their EV sales grew just 2% last year, while BYD's soared 60%. So Europe's like, fine, let's team up. They slap a gentle 17% tariff on BYD, compare that to America's 45% fist, and call it a day. But it's not just cars. Oh no, this alliance goes deeper. Europe's hooked on China for lithium, rare earths, the stuff that powers everything from EVs to wind turbines. China controls 80% of the world's rare earth supply, and Europe's not about to let the U.S. hog it. Germany's Siemens just signed a $2 billion deal for Chinese battery tech. 2 weeks ago, April Fools? Nope. Real deal. Now here's your midway call to action. Smash that like button if this is blowing your mind, because it should. The U.S. trade crisis isn't some far off, maybe. It's happening right now. Stock markets are jittery. The Dow's down 8% since January. That's $2.4 trillion wiped out. Oil prices are wobbling at $65 a barrel because China's shifting trade routes and American factories. They're laying off workers. 15,000 jobs cut in Michigan alone last quarter. This China-Europe pact isn't just about EVs, it's a lifeline, and the U.S. is floundering, missing the boat while the world moves on. Okay, buckle up, because this is where it gets crazy. April 2025. And there's a twist in this China-Europe alliance that's got the UC sweating bullets, words leaking out of Beijing. They're not just teaming up on EVs, they're rerouting oil and gas trades to Europe, cutting America out of the loop. Let's paint the picture. Canada's been the U.S. oil buddy forever, pumping 4.3 million barrels a day across the border. But now, they're flipping the script. New pipelines through British Columbia are greenlit, set to ship 500,000 barrels a day to China by 2027. Europe, EU.S. jumping in too. Norway, ASE's Equinor, just signed a $1.5 billion gas deal with China last week. Imagine tankers steaming past U.S. shores heading straight for Rotterdam and Shanghai. Now, feel the ripple. Gas prices in the U.S. spike to $4.80 a gallon, up 20% since January. Because supply's tightening, manufacturing costs are skyrocketing. Ford's CEO's on TV warning F-150 prices could jump 15%. That's $7,500 more per truck. The numbers are brutal. U.S. trade deficit with China hit $450 billion in 2024, a 20% leap from 2023, and it's not just oil. China's flooding Europe with $50 billion in solar panels, wind turbines, green tech galore, while America's stuck in tariff quicksand, factories idling. Here's the real kicker. Europe's not just buying, they're investing back. The EU pumped $10 billion into Chinese green tech in March, a cash injection that's got U.S. lawmakers scrambling. EVs were the spark, sure. China's 1.4 million units to Europe last year dwarfed the U.S.'s 150,000. But this is bigger. It's a full-on economic realignment. Picture it. Bustling ports in Spain, cranes swinging, while U.S. auto plants cut shifts. GM's down 10% in output since January, the stats don't lie. U.S. exports to Europe dropped 15% last year, $120 billion gone. Meanwhile, China-Europe trade's up 22%, hitting $870 billion, so what's the twist? This isn't just about trade, it's power. China and Europe are betting on a future where the U.S. isn't the king anymore, and America's flailing. Tariffs aren't saving jobs, they're killing them. 25,000 manufacturing layoffs nationwide since Christmas. So here's the big finish. Is this the end of America's trade empire? Or can they pull a rabbit out of the hat? I'm not calling it yet, but one thing's clear. This alliance is a beast, and it's moving fast. So tell me in the comments, what's the U.S. West's next move? Because I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to find out.